Welcome to Can I Get a Fix on Your Location in AL? Hey, I'm Eric, and one of the things that we can do in Business Central is actually get location from the GPS of the device you're running Business Central on. The devices, the browser. So if you're running on a phone or something else that has geolocation built in, you can actually get that location to into your AL code. Let me show you how. So here is the documentation from docs Microsoft.com implementing location in AL, and be aware that when you look at this, you can see a whole lot of stuff about implementing this in .NET. So only works on-prem. So that would imply that if we purely look at this from a documentation perspective, that geolocation functionality only works on-prem. That's not the case. So I hate to be the one to say this, but don't trust the documentation because this is outdated by quite a few releases. Anyway, if we go to AL, so the AL app extension on GitHub, this is the system application repository. There's the geolocation module. So if we're in this one, we can see there's a bunch of stuff, yada yada yada, and so on. We got modules, we got system, and we got geolocation. And we can see that this has existed at least since version 17, perhaps even before that. Yeah, kind of version 17, I guess. But here we got another set of documentation. This is interesting. So whenever you're thinking about, but how is something working? There's a code unit in the system application that does something, and it's not documented in the documentation. It's just documented in this different set of documentation. So you have to go in here and look, which is kind of confusing. Anyway, we can see that there is a code unit called geolocation, and it has some functionality. So why don't we try that out? And here is the usual suspect of the Hello World extension to the custom list. So we had a geolocation, and that was a code unit called geolocation. We also have let's call it geopage. There's also a page called geolocation, but that page, hang on, come on, Eric. That page, you can use it, but it kind of works best in conjunction with the code unit because that page is used by the code unit. So from here we can go in and say, we can say if geolocation dot request geolocation. So we need to ask for a location before we can get it. So if we request a geolocation, then let's create some variables here. So latitude, longitude, decimals. How about decimals? Then we can do so if we can request a location, then we can go geolocation dot get geolocation. We could also test that this is actually there's I think there's a function called has geolocation. So we could probably do that. If has, let's try that, has geolocation, then we can go geolocation dot get geolocation, and we need to latitude, comma, longitude. So now we get those two. They are var transferred. So at this point we can, let's see if we can get this formatted nicely. another end here, and then we go message. I see you at, like that. So latitude, comma longitude. We're not getting into the discussion which one we should say first or last, or how we're going to format these, because that's like a whole video by itself if we're doing that. So let's try to run it and see what happens. And I'll run this on my Docker thing here, and in a second I will tell you a secret about that. So now you saw the page come up, and then I am just north of the 49th parallel here, and I'm on the west coast, so this seems correct. So this only works in my Docker because first of all, we need to allow it in the browser, but there are some weird thing when you're running HTTP, so you might need to set the flags. So if we do, in this case, I'm on Edge, and then you do flags, and we got insecure origins treated as secure in order to access something like this. So that is pretty easy, actually. There's one little thing that you need to consider if you were to use something like this, and that's it. This only works if there's actually code running by a client. So in this case, you cannot have this running as a job queue. The job queue will not have a location because it's not running on a client. So in the end, what is actually happening here is that the request queue location will contact the browser and ask for, hey, where are you, dear browser? If the browser running on a phone or on a tablet or on a computer or whatever, the same thing as when you go to Google Maps or something like that, and it will tell you where you are. It's the same feature, but if you're running something in a job queue, then that's just running inside the server, and there's no browser to ask where you are. But that's pretty simple. So this is how you can get your location. Actually, let me show you one more thing. One more thing. So there is a and I seem to get the same result here, but your mileage may vary depending on if you're on, depending on what kind of device you are on. So there is a not what it's called set high accuracy. So we can tell this to be more accurate, and I think this has an impact if you're on a device with an actual GPS in it, so a phone or something like that has a GPS chip, that we don't just get the location, but we actually get the very precise location with that. Anyway, that was a slight bonus content. Today I'm not gonna point to whatever video is showing up here, because maybe I can make the video on the camera show up here. If that's the case, go watch this, because they're kind of related and do the same thing. And remember to subscribe, and I will see you in the next video. Take care. Bye.